Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Itina sumahabhaga Narayana gunan bhrati Sanshayas muhan jatas Tad bhavams chetamarhati. O greatly fortunate and learned Brahman, whether Narayan is partial or impartial has become a subject of great doubt. Kindly dispel my doubt with positive evidence that Narayan is always neutral and equal to everyone. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Since Lord Narayan is absolute, his transcendental qualities are described as one. Thus his punishments and his offerings of favor are both of the same value. Essentially, his inimical actions are not displays of enmity toward his so-called enemies, but in the material field one thinks that Krishna is favorable to devotees and unfavorable to non-devotees. When Krishna finally instructs in Bhagavad Gita, Sarva dharman parityaja mam ekam sharanam braja, this is meant not only for Arjuna, but for every living entity within this universe. Translation. O greatly fortunate and learned Brahman, whether Narayan is partial or impartial has become a subject of great doubt. Kindly dispel my doubt with positive evidence that Narayan is always neutral and equal to everyone. This inquiry is put before Shukadeva Goswami by the great king Parikshit Maharaj. The activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead sometimes appear most bewildering and inconceivable. In fact, without the spiritual vision which is blessed upon one by the great souls, it is impossible even for the greatest scholars to fathom the inconceivable actions of the Lord. Maharaj Parikshit inquiring from Shukadeva Goswami, although Maharaj Parikshit was a most learned and religious man, he is taking the role of an ordinary learned and religious man. Therefore, he cannot understand how the Lord and his devotees are working and acting in this world the way they do. No one can understand the mind of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And similarly, nobody can understand the mind of those great souls who have surrendered their lives to his lotus feet. Therefore it is said, Vaishnavera Kriya Vigyena Bhujai, which means that even the greatest, most learned scholars, they cannot understand the mind and the intentions of the pure souls, the great Vaishnavas. And the great Vaishnavas, they are inconceivable in their behavior because they are acting on behalf of the most inconceivable of all personalities, the personality of Godhead. Krishna declares that he is equal to everyone, and yet we find him embracing his devotees and killing the non-devotees. Does that seem partial? It appears very partial. Why was he embracing the Gopis and joking very nicely with the Pandavas, but he was cutting off the heads of great demons like Shishupal? If he's equal to everyone. You see, the Lord responds with everyone according to how they approach him. But he gives everyone an equal chance. In this way he was equal to everyone. Just like the sun does not discriminate who he puts his beneficial light upon. But a person who hides in a cave by his own free choice gets none of the benefits of the sun. And a person who comes out into the sunlight gets all of the benefits of the sun. Is the sun partial? The sun is giving its rays equally to all. It is a question of how we are willing to reciprocate with the sun. So similarly, Krishna is giving his love. He is giving his mercy freely to everyone. It is a question of how we are willing to reciprocate with the mercy of the Lord. Essentially, it is due to ahankara, or false ego, that all problems arise within our life on the spiritual path. You see, the Lord's mercy can only truly be reciprocated with one whose heart is humble, one who desires no prestige for himself in this world. As long as one desires prestige for oneself, he is hiding within the cave of his own false ego, and therefore he is not exposed to the merciful light of God's mercy. The great demons, they wanted to be the enjoyers. They wanted to enjoy gross and subtle sense gratification. They were thinking that they were better than God. They were thinking they were better than God's devotees. In this condition, the mercy of the Lord and his devotees is impossible to achieve. Srila Prabhupada used to tell us that when one approaches a spiritual master, he should never think himself or present himself to have any good qualities. He should present himself as nothing, fool number one. And he should think himself fool number one. If he can present himself in this way, then he is opening his heart to the complete mercy of Guru Kripa. But to the degree we are contaminated by false pride, we remain in the dark cave of our own material bondage. That is why Queen Kunti explained, Janmaishwarya sruta sribir edamana madapuma naivarhati vidatum vaitvam akinchana gocharam. Material qualifications are the greatest disqualifications for spiritual life. Physical beauty, a high education, family prestige, and wealth. She considers these four things to be the greatest obstacles to a proper understanding of the Supreme Lord. Akinchana gochara means the Lord is the property of the impoverished. Akinchana means one who has no possessions, one who is in poverty. Now, we read about great souls who were very, very important figures within society, even to the extent of great kings, like Ambarish Maharaj, like Bharat Maharaj. How they achieved the divine mercy of the Lord. They were certainly not impoverished. They were very royal and distinguished in every aspect of their life. But in their hearts, they felt themselves impoverished. In other words, they were not proud. In other words, even in the face of all of their wealth, all of their beauty, all of their high learning, all of their position and prestige, their high birth, they consider themselves that in front of God and in front of the sadhus, I am most insignificant nothing. Just like when Maharaj Dasarath was approached by Vishwamitra Muni. Vishwamitra Muni got off of his throne and Dasarath Maharaj got off of his throne and put Vishwamitra on the throne and washed his feet. And he appealed to this great saint, saying, you are living in the forest. You have no home. You have no money. You have no big education. But you have Krishna. Therefore you are a rich man. And although I have high education and a big nice palace and a beautiful family and lots of money and power and very beautiful high birth, I am a poor man because I do not have bhakti. Real wealth must be understood from a spiritual perspective. And therefore, one who considers himself impoverished, even in the most royal setting, such a person is able to humble himself before the great sages and before God. And only such a person is qualified to receive the mercy of the Lord. Now one may ask, why? If God is impartial, He only gives His mercy to such humble devotees. The answer is, it is not due to partiality. It is natural. Samoham sarvabhuteshu namedveshosti napriya. Krishna says that I am equal to everyone, I envy no one, I am not partial. But my devotee is very dear to me and I am very dear to him. If you approach Krishna with love, He responds with love. But He gives everyone the same opportunity to approach Him with love. The other day, a man was asking, is it possible, without one's destiny to be such, that one can become God's devotee? That one can become self-realized? In other words, if one's destiny is not to become self-realized, is it possible that a person can become self-realized? And this is a question that has been debated by scholars in the religious field for centuries. What part does our destiny play in our spiritual growth, in our ability to surrender to God? In this regard, I would like to narrate one of the great precepts spoken by our spiritual master, His Divine Grace Om Vishnupad Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. he was asked by his disciples, how is it that as lowly and sinful as we are, you are giving us, we are able to take to the highest path of bhakti? Krishna says in Gita, Bahunam janmanam ante jnanavam papadyate vasudeva sarvamiti samahatma sudurlabha. That after many, many, many births and deaths of following the religious systems of the world, one finally, when he comes to the point of knowledge, surrenders to Vasudeva Krishna, knowing him to be the cause of all causes and all that is. So how is it possible? We had performed no samskaras according to the Vedic traditions. Of the samskaras that are recommended, Garbhodhan samskara, conception, the birth samskara, the sacred, the samskara of the first grains of food, the samskara of when you first learn how to write, you go to school, the samskara of the sacred thread, diksha, initiation. There are so many of these purificatory sacrifices that is recommended in a person's, human being's life. So we never, any samskaras. Not only that, but from the very embryo in the womb we were meat eaters. And practically every one of us was addicted to intoxication, many of us illicit sex, gambling. What was our qualification for taking to the highest of all spiritual movements, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Sankirtan movement? In other words, they were asking, if it's due to destiny, what did we possibly do to deserve such a destiny? We cannot figure it out. Karma means action and reaction. Prabhupada said, it wasn't due to your destiny. It wasn't due to your qualifications. It wasn't due to your karma. It was only due to Guru Kripa. He said, I gave you your qualifications. You had none. Your only qualification is you accepted it. I am giving the same qualification to every living being, Prabhupada said. Every person I come in contact with, through my books, through my personal presence, through my devotees, the same opportunity is there. Some accept and some reject. That is our independence. If you accept, then the path to Godhead is yours. If you reject, then your life is in your own hands. How do we accept? How did Arjuna accept? As long as he was speaking learned words, thinking himself very great, which he was, Krishna simply remained silent. Krishna had nothing to say to Arjuna, as long as Arjuna was speaking learned words. It wasn't until Arjuna emptied himself of all of his prestigious thoughts toward his own ideas. It wasn't until he accepted, I am nothing, I am fool number one. Krishna, before you, I have nothing to say about myself except, please instruct me. I am your servant. Then Krishna smiled. He was very pleased with Arjuna. Yes, now you have come out of the dark cave into the sunlight of my transcendental mercy. So we should not be bewildered by the illusion of Maya. The illusion of Maya is that she tries to make us puffed up somehow or other. Prabhupada describes the story of Dr. Frog, how he thinks he knows everything. And his friend came into his well and said, I have just come from the Pacific Ocean. And Dr. Frog said, Pacific Ocean. What is that? Very big body of water. Bigger than where I live? Yes, bigger. How big? Twice? No, not twice. 3 times as big? No, you don't understand. This well is very small. I'm talking about the Pacific Ocean. But according to his relative conception, he was born in that well, and he thought that well was very big. It was beyond his comprehension to even imagine comparing anything outside of his well. So he began to puff himself up. You know how frogs puff themselves up? He said, is it this big? He said, no, bigger. Puffed himself bigger. Is it this big? No, bigger. Is it this big? No, bigger. Is it this? He burst it open. That is the condition of a person who, by his own false conception that he is a qualified man of the world, thinks that he can enter into an understanding of God on the basis of his intelligence, or his money, or his high birth, or his beauty, or anything material. You will simply burst by your own false ego. Therefore, when Arjuna accepted the condition, and actually it took him coming to the platform of utter misery before he accepted that position. We read in Bhagavad Gita, he was miserable man. His hairs were standing on end, he was pale white, his mouth was dry, he was crying. He was miserable, suffering. Until he came to that position, he was not willing to humble himself. That is why Krishna says, Yasyaham anagrinami harisheta dhanam shanai. When I want to really show my mercy to my devotee, I put him in a difficult situation in life. Then the devotee realizes how significant his glory really is before God. We may be very, very learned, very popular, but then our own loved ones, they won't even give you a chapati. It's a humbling experience. What to speak of when we lose our good intelligence, when we lose our job, when we lose our distinction. Recently I have been very frequently being invited to the Alcoholics Anonymous Fellowship to deliver lectures. And I must say, they are most receptive. Whatever you speak to them about God, their hearts are screaming out for more. Why? Because the nature of this disease of alcoholism is generally people, they lose their jobs. Their distinction in society is they're completely bums, useless parasites. Their families usually kick them out of their home. All distinction is annihilated. Usually they lose all their wealth. And not only that, but physically they're in a totally miserable, suffering condition. They're never satisfied. Now, such persons usually just die a miserable death. But others in that miserable condition, they call out for God. They call out for His mercy. They have nowhere else to turn. They're humble. They have nothing to be proud of. Please, help. In this sense, they are the most fortunate. There is a story in the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. It is called the Ayala Gita. It is about the great king Pururava, who was one of the forefathers of Lord Sri Ramchandra. King Pururava was the king of the earth. He was most highly possessed of all riches, all power, everything a man could possibly aspire for in this world. And he had the most beautiful wife in all the universe. Her name was Urvasi. Do you know how Urvasi was born? Do you know the story? It is described in the Bhagavatam that the Supreme Lord appeared as Narayan Rishi. And he was performing great tapasya, austerity, at Badrik Ashram in the Himalayas. And Narayan Rishi was performing such tapasya that no one has ever seen. And by performing tapasya, you become very powerful. So Indra, the king of heaven, even though he's actually a very good devotee of the Lord, because of his high position, he sometimes becomes very, very proud and very, very much afraid. The more you have, the more you have to fear. That is a fact. A man who has nothing to fear. A man who has much, everything he has to fear losing. Huh? Does that mean we should give everything we own away? What it means is we should give up our false claim of proprietorship. As long as you claim this is mine, you must be fearful. But if you accept that this is God's, and ultimately it's in His hands, if He wants to take it, let Him take it. If He wants to give me more, let Him give me more. I am not attached, I am only attached to His service. That condition of consciousness is fearless. When you are thinking of Krishna, you are fearless. But as soon as you start thinking in terms of I and mine, so much fear. So King Indra, he has such a beautiful heavenly planet, Indraloka. So many beautiful people constantly serving him. And everyone wants what Indra has, every materialist. So therefore Indra is potentially afraid of everybody. Because whoever wants what I has, they may come to that position in life where they can have the power to take it. And there is no greater strength than that which comes through tapasya in the material world. So Narayan Rishi, because of the extent of that tapasya, Indra was thinking, my God, he will become so powerful that he will take my abode. How is it possible he's thinking like this? Narayan Rishi, these great souls, what do they care about Indra's abode? To them, Indra's abode is simply a disturbance. It's all nonsense. Huh? But for Indra, you see, you always see everyone according to how you see. You think everyone is like you. An envious person evaluates everybody as being envious. A lusty person evaluates that everyone's motive must be lust. Huh? A proud person, he evaluates that everyone's motive must be pride. According to the color glasses that you're wearing, you see everything that color. If you wear yellow glasses, everybody is yellow. If you wear red glasses, everyone is red. If you wear green glasses, everyone is green. So your consciousness is like a coloring that tints your vision. And according to your consciousness, you see everyone like that. You cannot imagine how anybody cannot be like that. So therefore Indra, because he's so much enjoying his heavenly delights, even though he's a devotee, he's a very good devotee too, somehow or other, he thinks everybody must want to enjoy the way I'm enjoying. Therefore, everybody must want my abode. And here's this Narayan Rishi, he's performing such tapasya. Obviously, he's doing it so that he could take my position. Huh? Obvious. So he decided that I must destroy him. You see, a materialist, as soon as someone infringes upon his sense gratification, a materialist will do anything to destroy that person's ability to do so. Just like in business, we find such competition. Competitors are never friends socially. Usually, amongst the big businessmen. To take a picture to the paper showing their friendships, but they're making all plans in their minds how to destroy him. They'll go to nice meetings and say, oh, yes, we are part of the guild. We will work together for the better of society and our business ethics. But in their hearts and in their plans, they're simply thinking how to destroy him and his business and his family and everything. Similarly, amongst politicians, my God, if somebody becomes politically powerful, the first thing you try to do is assassinate that person's character. And start spreading all sorts of rumors and everything else. That actually this person is immoral and in the past he's done so many bad things. The presidential debate in America, I don't know what it is in India because I don't speak Hindi. Krishna's protecting me. But in America, last year was the president election between Mr. Bush and Mr. Dukakis. And somehow or other, just out of curiosity, I was at a college campus, and in the student union, all the students were gathered, many students were gathered together under this big TV, big screen TV, to watch the debate between the two presidential candidates. So I was thinking, let me see what they have to say. So I sat there, and all they did is insult each other. One person simply insulted the other person, and then the other person just defended himself to show that this person was wrong, and then insulted him, and they were simply throwing mud on each other's faces in front of tens and millions of people. It was nothing but insults. The whole debate. The issues didn't even matter. The person who wins is the person who is better at insulting the other than the other is insulting him. That's all. And the amazing thing is they're just these bombastic, horrible things they were saying about the other person, and the other person would just refuse that there was any validity or truth to it. And then he would just come out with horrible stories about the other person, and the other person would just say it's not true and cover it up. And the poor viewer, he doesn't know what's true and what's not true. Anybody could say anything. So you're sitting there bewildered. Who's right? Who's wrong? Nobody knows. God knows. Hopefully God knows. And then you're asked to vote. Most people close their eyes. Or the person who somehow or other seems to be less vicious, I will vote for him. Nobody likes anybody anymore. What is politics? Simply insulting one another. And if somebody has some prestige, if anyone comes up toward where their prestige is, we must assassinate them. What to speak if someone has more prestige than us? Then we have to somehow or other drag them down so that we're on top. Sometimes even in spiritual circles it's like this. One who's on top wants to just beat down everybody, and one who's not on top, who's approaching the top, wants to somehow or other drag that person by any means. This is how the world turns in all fields of activities. So Indra was like that. Narayan Rishi, he's performing all this tapasya because he wants to enjoy my abode. But I'll show him. I will destroy his reputation like anything. So what did he do? He called for Kamadev, Cupid. And he said, Cupid, I'm the king of heaven. You follow my instructions. I want you to make this Narayan Rishi in Badrik Ashram. I want him to fall down. And you know how to do it. Everyone in the material creation is under your spell, so put this man under your spell. Bring your sharpest arrows. So Cupid appeared at Badrik Ashram. And he made everything very nice. He made nice weather and nice fragrant breezes in the air. Just everything was to make your senses very pleased and very hungry for more. See, the more there's pleasure for the senses, the more your senses want more pleasure. So first Kamadev created a very, very supremely heavenly environment. And then he brought the best of all the apsaras, of all the beautiful heavenly damsels, to make a circle around Narayan Rishi, singing with beautiful voices. And the voices were like ambrosial nectar to the ears. And the fragrance of their bodies were very intoxicating to the nose. And the softness of their flesh was very too much pleasing. What to speak of how they appeared before one's eyes. So they were all singing and dancing before Narayan Rishi. Narayan Rishi, he just looked at them completely undisturbed. And he knew exactly why they had come. So just to add insult to injury, he welcomed them. First of all, they could see, Kamadev could see, that there was nothing within his power to do to move this person. So then Narayan Rishi said, oh, you are my guests. You have come to my Badrinath. Please, let me give you some water. Let me give you some prasad. Please take a nice sitting place. Let me make you feel at home. They were like, oh my God, he's going to destroy us. Kamadev and all the apsaras were thinking, my God, he's so powerful. He's not at all attracted. He could destroy us at any minute. He said, no, you are my guests. Be comfortable. And he could see the bewilderment in their mind. So he wanted to prove a fact to them. Out from his body came beautiful women that were millions of times more beautiful than all the heavenly damsels. And when they saw this, they were struck with wonder. And Narayan Rishi told them, do you think I'm attracted to the opulence of Indra's abode? Indra's abode has no attraction. It is, compared to spiritual bliss, it is simply useless. Nothing. He said, you go tell Indra that he can have his heavenly planet. I have no attraction. But I want to give him a gift. Of all these heavenly damsels, choose one. Of all these damsels I have created, the most beautiful of all the damsels he created was named Urvasi. And he chose her. Cupid chose her to bring to Indra as a gift. And Indra, he was very ashamed. And he felt very bad and fearful. But at the same time, he was very happy to have Urvasi. And she was the best of all the heavenly damsels. So nice. He couldn't live without her. She was the topmost of all the apsaras. He had his wife, Sachi Devi, but he loved to see Urvasi dance. So, there is a story of how Mitra and Varuna were once walking, and they happened to see Urvasi. And even though they were great saints, they restrained their senses. They're demigods, so they're very highly elevated souls. They restrained their senses from actually having some relationship with Urvasi. But in the process, they lost their power. They couldn't control that. And the semen that was lost, they put in a pot. And Vashishta Muni was born of that semen. Very powerful. You know that story about Vashishta Muni. There was a king named Maharaj Nimi. And Maharaj Nimi wanted to do Rajasuya sacrifice. Vashishta Muni, he approached him, that, can you be my priest? You are my guru. Vashishta Muni said, I will be your priest, but Indra has invited me first, so I must do his sacrifice first. So you wait until I get back. So he is waiting and waiting. And Maharaj Nimi began to think, what am I waiting for? At any minute I could die. And I must perform this sacrifice for my own purification, for the purification of all living beings. So therefore I'll get another priest and do it. After all, the only reason Vashishta Muni went to Indra is because Indra's paying him more. So Maharaj Nimi performed the sacrifice. And after some time, Vashishta completed Indra's sacrifice and came down and said, all right, Maharaj Nimi, I'm here. Maharaj Nimi said, I've already performed the sacrifice. Vashishta Muni said, what? Without me? You offensive rascal, I curse you to die. And Maharaj Nimi looked at Vashishta and he said, what kind of a nonsense Brahmin are you? You're simply concerned with Indra's money. I curse you to die. So they both died. Huh? They lived happily ever after. So then what happened is the sages and the Brahmins, they were thinking, Maharaj Nimi was such a good king. Now what? We have no king. All the rogues and thieves will just take over everything. So they began to do penance to the demigods to bring Maharaj Nimi back to life. The demigods are so powerful that they can even bring dead people back to life. Huh? So, the demigods came and they brought Maharaj Nimi back to life. Maharaj Nimi looked at them. Why'd you bring me back to this place? You're the king of the earth. He said, I'm not the king of the earth. I'm not this body. You're all in ignorance. He said, I am going to the kingdom of God, Vaikuntha. And you want me to stay in this miserable material world? Just because you're attached to your material body, you think I'm attached to this material body? You think I'm attached to my kingly wealth and my opulence and my beautiful wife and my beautiful children? I'm only attached to Krishna. This world is a miserable place. Don't make me stay here. With your permission, let me be liberated from this body once and for all and go back to Godhead. So then all the Brahmins and all the demigods said, all right, what can we do? You have our blessings to go back to Godhead. So Maharaj Nimi went back to Godhead and his body was there. So they churned his body. They churned his body to get someone who was a descendant of his to take over the kingdom. And you know who came out? A king of the name Janak. Janak literally means one who's born from the churning of another's body. And this king Janak became the king of Mithila. His name was also Mithila. And he had many, many descendants. They were all known as Janak. And one of those descendants happened to be the great father of Sita, who he found in the field when he was plowing. So that was the story of Nimi Maharaj. But what about Vashishta? He also died. But then he took birth in this pot from the semen of Mitra and Varuna. This is the great power of Urvasi in her beauty. But Mitra and Varuna cursed her that you have to leave the heavenly planets and you have to live on earth as an ordinary woman. So she had to leave the heavenly planets with all her beauty and all of her glamour. She had to leave Indra and come to the earth. And she became attracted to Maharaj Pururava. This is a long story. I will not tell it. Because it is a very confidential story. But somehow or other they became very infatuated with one another. And he became too much attached to the beauty of this woman. And by some arrangement of King Indra, he broke his vows to Urvasi. And she left him. And Maharaj Pururava was so much heartbroken that he just couldn't be a king, he couldn't do anything. He was just traveling around the world looking for Urvasi for years and years and years. And finally he met her on the bank of the Saraswati River at Kurukshetra. And he fell at her feet and begged her, please, 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 come back. I cannot live without you. She said, you are such a fool attached to sense gratification. Don't you know that anyone who's attached to the sense gratification, especially in the form of the opposite sex, must suffer? All the miseries of material existence follow right behind one who is attached to sex life. It's the greatest illusion, the greatest impediment, and the only source of great suffering. So why don't you just give it up? He said, yes, your words are true, but I cannot give it up. I must have you. So that's another long story. But finally, after doing years and years of sacrifice and penance, Vishnu gave him a benediction. What do you want? I want to be with Urvasi. Well, her curse is over. She's in the heavenly planet. I want to go there. So he went there. He could have asked for liberation. He could have asked for God, going back to Godhead. But he asked for Urvasi. So after living there and enjoying, he realized that I'm simply suffering more and more. The more I enjoy with this woman, the more I'm in anxiety. The more I'm suffering. And then she left him again. And he was running after her naked, praying, please come back, come back, come back. She didn't even look back. She left. You promised. How can you leave? He was suffering so bad. And in that suffering, he became very enlightened. There was nothing in the world that meant anything to him. He was in so much pain, and in that condition, the Ayala Gita was spoken. Krishna narrates this story to Uddhava. He's narrating his stupidity for being attached to the things of this world, and how the only solution is to take shelter of the saints, the sadhus, who have dedicated their life in the service of God. And by their mercy only can we attain attraction to Krishna. So Maharaj Pururava became a pure devotee, a perfectly self-realized soul in that condition. Because he became prideless. Because he approached God with devotion. He approached the Lord and his devotees with a humble heart. So the Lord is equal to everyone. He'll give everyone what they want. If you want to forget him, he will give you forgetfulness. If you want to remember him, he will give you remembrance. If you want material luxuries, He'll give you material luxuries. If you want bhakti, He will give you bhakti. In this way, God is equal to all. If you approach Him as an enemy, He'll reveal Himself to you as your enemy. If you approach Him as your loving friend, He will reveal Himself as your loving friend. So this great mystery, is God equal to everyone? If so, why is He dealing with different persons in different ways? We must understand that yes, God is perfectly just. He is perfectly merciful, and He is perfectly equal to all living beings. But we can only receive the sweetness of His mercy when we become humble, when we come out of the cave of our false ego, and we accept, my dear Lord, from this day I am yours. When we honestly, from the bottom of our hearts, call out, my dear Lord, from this day on I am yours, then Krishna picks us up and He keeps us within the palm of His own hands as our protector, our friend, and our guide. That is the perfection of life. To humble ourselves before the Lord, to humble ourselves before His devotees, and to expose ourselves to the infinite shining light of His divine mercy. Thank you very much.